There was a young man named David who worked as a cashier at a busy supermarket in downtown Chicago. Every day, hundreds of customers passed through his register, and every day, he watched the same pattern unfold. People would hand him crumpled bills, receive their change, and rush out without counting it. Most days, David's mind wandered through his shift, dreaming of a better life, a bigger paycheck, something more than his modest apartment and mounting student loans. One Tuesday evening, just before closing time, an elderly woman came through his line with a single bag of groceries. She paid with a $50 bill for a purchase that cost $12.35. David opened the register and began counting her change, but in his fatigue, he made a mistake. He handed her back $47.65 instead of $37. The woman, her hands trembling slightly, tucked the money into her worn purse without counting and shuffled toward the exit. David noticed his error immediately. His heart raced. He looked around. His manager was in the back office. No cameras pointed directly at his hands. The woman was already at the door. $10. Who would even know? In that moment, David felt something he had never truly understood before. His mind began to split into two voices. One voice, loud and persuasive, whispered that he deserved this. He was underpaid, overworked, and nobody would miss $10 from a register that handled thousands each day. The other voice, quieter but somehow stronger, simply asked him one question. "Is this who you are?" David's hand hovered over the register. He realized that this moment, this tiny, insignificant moment that no one else would ever know about, was actually the most important moment of his life. Not because of the money, but because of what it would teach his mind about who he was. He closed the register, ran toward the exit, and called out to the woman, "Ma'am, wait. I made a mistake with your change." The elderly woman turned, confused, as David gently explained and handed her the correct amount. She smiled, touched his hand, and thanked him. As she left, David returned to his register. Something had shifted inside him. He had just discovered something profound. He had the power to control his mind, to choose his actions regardless of circumstances, regardless of what he could get away with. That night, David couldn't sleep, but not from guilt or regret. He was awake because he felt alive. He realized that for years, he had been a passenger in his own life, letting his circumstances, his emotions, and his impulses drive his decisions. But in that one moment of honest choice, he had taken the wheel. The next morning, David made a decision. If he could control his mind in that one moment, he could control it in every moment. He started waking up at 5 in the morning, not because anyone forced him, but because he chose to. He began studying online courses during his lunch breaks, not because his boss required it, but because he decided his future was worth the discipline. When his alarm clock rang in the dark winter mornings and every fiber of his being wanted to hit snooze, he remembered that moment at the register. He remembered that he had the power to choose who he was, regardless of how he felt. 18 months later, David stood in a corporate office, not as a cashier, but as a junior financial analyst. His manager asked him during the interview what made him different from other candidates. David paused, then told him about the $10 and the elderly woman. He explained that he learned something that night that changed everything. He learned that the person who can control their mind, who can choose honesty when dishonesty is easier, who can choose discipline when laziness is tempting, that person can achieve anything. Because success isn't about circumstances, it's about the daily choice to be someone you respect when no one is watching. 5 years after that Tuesday evening, David had started his own financial consulting firm. He hired young people who reminded him of his former self, people who were hungry for opportunity but unsure of their path. On their first day, he would tell them the story of the $10. Not to preach, but to pass on the most valuable lesson he had ever learned. Your mind will always give you excuses, will always show you the easier path, will always justify why you deserve to compromise. But the moment you realize you have the power to control those thoughts, to choose who you are in the moments when no one is watching, that's the moment your life truly begins. Because honesty isn't about other people. It's about proving to yourself that you are the person you claim to be. And discipline isn't about punishment. It's about loving your future self enough to make hard choices today. David kept a $10 bill framed on his office wall. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that the most powerful thing any person can do is control their own mind, choose their own character, and become the person they were always meant to be, one honest choice at a time.